Well, we're back and we're live. At least that's what the little thing just came up and said. Said you're live. We're broadcasting live right now to our friends over on YouTube, to our friends over on Facebook, and for those of you that are listening who have downloaded this podcast, it's the What's on Sports podcast, and my name is John Tedora. I'll be your host today, and I've got a huge, enormous show. This is like a show on Viagra. That's how big it is. This show is enormous. It's an enormous, engorged. I'm sorry, that's way too many adjectives. It's a really big show coming at you on a Monday afternoon. It's the What's on Sports podcast, brought to you by your friends over at Sports Trading Systems. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Sports Trading Systems, where they have created a revolutionary method that allows you to trade sports just like other people's trade stocks. Using back-tested historical data, the guys in Sports Trading Systems Lab have developed a trading system that has models that show returns of 150, 170, and over 200% with low downside risk shown in the models. Learn about this amazing system by going over to Sports Trading Systems, sportstradingsystems.com right now, and learn about amazing systems that use stop losses, system development, and a proprietary risk management system that puts you in the driver's seat and make the sports books fear you this year instead of you fearing them. Now, again, we talked about a big weekend that happened in the NFL. It was huge. But first, I want to tell you about my weekend, because I seldom get a 4-day weekend since I took this job over. And I got to tell you, I totally enjoyed myself. I had a Thanksgiving dinner that was fantastic. Went out with some friends. I enjoyed myself in a safe and responsible manner, which unfortunately was not done in other places around the country, and certainly not done in Denver, which we'll get to later on. I also had a great weekend of sports. I enjoyed the Mike Tyson fight, which I thought was entertaining, to say the least. That was an entertaining event. I also, for my own self, had a great weekend because I played a little bit of fantasy sports again, which I haven't been doing, but since I've been getting the advice of Michael Schussler, who will be on the show later on, and talking about fantasy, since I've been following his advice, and this is no BS, since I've been following his advice, last week I played fantasy for the first time in over a year, daily fantasy. I won, I think, $600, and I did the same thing again this week. I was on pace to win $60,000, and unfortunately, the second part of my games, my 4 o'clock games, really took a big dump on me. But let me tell you, there was some excitement going on for me when you start to look at something and you go, well, let's see, I spent like $150 and I got a chance to win $60,000. I mean, daily fantasy, you can see why there's so much excitement around that all the time. It's such a low cost to get in, mess around, pick out some players you think may actually score some points, have a good day. It's really just rolling the dice. It's really truly a football lottery, but it truly makes the games a lot more exciting. And for somebody like me, I'm a Steeler fan. And while I do watch all the games on Sundays, I'll have 2 or 3 TVs going on at the same time. The main TV that I focus on is the Steelers. So I'll always watch the Steeler game, and I watch the other games peripherally. So I'll look around and I'll see I'll have the Steelers on one game. I'll have another good game on another TV. Then I'll have the red zone on a third television. So I'm really taking in a lot of information. Got 2 laptops in front of me. I'm watching all the scores all the time. I got my phone getting alerts. It's really a true multi-stimulant experience. At least for me it is. There's always so much going on, and I truly enjoy Sundays. But adding the fantasy element to it is really added a little more for me. I got to be honest. It's not something I normally do, but it's something I've done the last 2 weeks, and it's something I'll probably continue to do until the end of the season. And I have a feeling if I were to do that, I would probably most likely kind of miss it when I stop. I got to be careful, right? It's like one of those things I may start playing daily fantasy all the time. Maybe the NBA, I'm already thinking about how that would work. You could literally play every day. So there's a lot of excitement in that for me. It's new to me. It's new to you. You should definitely stick around. Again, Michael Schussler will be on the show a little later on. And let me talk about what we're going to be doing on the show today. We're going to be talking about a lot of good stuff. There's just a little bit of controversy that happened over the weekend from some comments that Tony Romo made during a football game. We'll talk about that. I want to cover the disaster in Denver. At least that's what I'm calling it. And then, of course, like I said, Michael Schussler will be on with a special report talking about some key fantasy information that happened over the weekend that could affect you coming up later on. I also want to touch on the Monday Night Football game tonight because on paper, it's a pretty decent game, actually. And there's some opportunities there where you may see some interesting things happen in tonight's game. And then we're going to wrap it up because there is some sad news in the NFL, and it's really sad. It's the death of the Patriot way. And we'll bring on Lance Fernandez, who's one of our beat writers for What's on Sports.com. He also used to work for Fox Sports. He'll be on today talking about the death of the Patriot way, which I'm going to find super, super funny for me because I'm a Steeler fan. Anyway, so I may have mentioned that earlier. Let's talk about something that happened over the weekend, though, with Tony Romo. And this is always a pet peeve of mine. I'm always irritated by the way the national media interprets things and the way they interpret things in a way that would, I guess they interpret it in the way they want to interpret it as opposed to the way that they should interpret it. Now, this is the same national media that just 2 weeks ago told us that Tom Brady should retire. And Tony Romo went out of his way to actually kind of defend Tom Brady. Now, for me, I wasn't a huge fan of Tony Romo as a player because he was a Dallas Cowboy guy, but I respected Tony Romo's game. Tony Romo was one of those guys that, was honestly like a top 5, top 6 quarterback the entire time he played. Came out of nowhere. I mean, the guy's really a storybook story when you think about it. Undrafted free agent from some little small school, and I always know what college somebody went to. I honestly have no idea, no remembrance of what school Tony Romo went to. I know that he went to the same college as Sean Payton. That's the only thing I know, and I don't even know what school that is. He gets drafted to the Dallas Cowboys. He's not supposed to be anything except, he gets picked up by the Dallas Cowboys. Not even drafted. He's an unsigned free agent. He goes to the Cowboys. He's going to be a camp body. He ends up being the guy. Everybody's talking about this guy. Like, Tony Romo's going to be the starter there. Tony Romo's going to take over for Drew Bledsoe. And he does. And he's fantastic. He's really, really good. And if not for a few bad shoulder injuries, Tony Romo goes down as maybe, this is not a stretch, as maybe the greatest quarterback in Dallas Cowboy history. And that is a franchise that has a litany of amazing quarterbacks. Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman. These are Hall of Fame guys. But Tony Romo was on pace to be a guy that was kind of like that. I mean, he was on that type of pace. He was really a good guy. Then he had the shoulder injuries. And of course, we know what happens then. Tony Romo goes out of football. Dak Prescott takes over. The rest is kind of history. Luckily for us, Tony Romo never leaves. We're lucky about that because Tony Romo, literally from the moment he walks into a broadcast booth, is, maybe the best color commentator I've ever heard. I mean, he may be better in a different way than John Madden. Tony Romo's up there telling you what's going to happen before the play happens in a casual way. He just knows. He's just one of those football savants that knows exactly what's going to happen when it's going to happen. And he did it again this weekend. He's telling you from the perspective of a quarterback what is happening on each play. And he's really breaking down a great game to break down. He's breaking down the Kansas City-Tampa game. He's telling us everything that's happening with Kansas City. He's telling us everything that's happening with Tampa Bay. And the media hates it because Tony Romo is explaining to you from the eyes of a quarterback what he sees on the field. And he's telling you Tampa's not running enough motion. He's explaining to you why running motion is a good idea. Because when you see these receivers go in motion, it lets the quarterback have a read before the play ever snaps. So he can say, oh, you know what? This is going to be man, or this looks like a zone, or this looks like maybe a blitz. And the Patriots don't. The Tampa doesn't run enough zone. They also don't run enough short passes, which Brady specializes in. They've kind of taken Tom Brady and said, and this is I'm against this so much, and I think everyone should be. You take a quarterback and say this quarterback has to run our system, as opposed to saying what does this quarterback do well, and let's develop that inside of our system. Let's take our system and say, you know what, this guy isn't a chuck it down the field guy. He's more of a mid-range guy who can chuck it on occasion, and let's make that happen. And I think that's been sort of the problem there. And Tony Romo hits on it pretty well here. And the tweets that went off afterwards were insane. I mean, Nick Wright, who is one of the hosts on Fox Sports, who I actually like. He used to bother me. Something about him was like this agitating little nerd. He was on a show with Chris Carter for a while, and I forget the name of the show, but that was one of my favorite shows on TV for a while, though, because I thought Chris Carter was always so insightful and could give us that player's perspective, and was always so eloquent with the way he not only talked about what was happening on the field, but how he would feel about the things that were happening on the field. And they paired him with Nick Wright, and it was a great combo. Chris Carter gets in trouble. He leaves the show. Nick Wright stays on. Nick Wright has grown on me over time. He does have some interesting perspectives. He does speak in a way that makes me believe that he actually knows what he's talking about, which is rare on TV now. Some of these guys are talking, and I'm just like, what in the heck are you even talking about? Nick Wright has a point, makes the point pretty well. Goes on Twitter this weekend, though, and I'll read the tweets out for you, for those of you that are listening on the podcast. But Nick Wright says, exact quote from Tony Romo after the egregious overthrow by Brady on third down. This one is on Mike Evans. Brady throws a bad ball, but, and then Nick Wright goes on to say, excited for 3 hours of explanation how nothing is ever actually Tom Brady's fault, even when he obviously, even the obviously terrible throws. I read that wrong. So if you saw the play, and I actually watched this game and saw that play, Mike Evans is on the outside. He's single covered. Brady thinks he's going to run deep. Brady thinks he's going to go deeper than he does. Mike Evans pulls his route short. Brady overthrows him. So is it a bad throw? Well, where Evans is standing, it's a bad throw. But Brady obviously thinks Evans is going to be in a different spot. If not, he misses him by a mile. Now, that's the view from me, the layman. Tony Romo, who is a quarterback, who is literally calling what play is going to happen next, is telling us at the time of the play, he's literally saying, oh, right there, Mike Evans should have gone 3 yards deeper because of this coverage. He explains the coverage. He tells us why it should have happened. He's not giving an excuse. He's literally telling you what should have happened there. But there are probably 50 tweets like this online right now from guys with blue check marks who are all trying to destroy Tony Romo because they think that Tony Romo is trying to stick up for Tom Brady because they're both quarterbacks. And I mean, it's that ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that actually at one point I saw a tweet from one of the ESPN guys who I won't name, but he used to be a Steeler, and I like him. He's actually become a pretty good analyst, and you already know who he is. But he makes a tweet and he says, I guess I'm going to start sticking up for all defensive backs now because all defensive backs, when they make mistakes, it's not really their fault and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, Ryan Clark, what's wrong with you? All right, I said his name. It was Ryan Clark. So listen, this is a national media thing. Somebody said it, somebody started it, and now they're all gonna jump aboard, and no one's gonna have the balls to jump on and say, hey, Tony Romo actually knows how to play the position. Tony Romo actually said what should have happened on that play. Tony Romo actually understood what was going on and explained to us that and many other things that were going on in that offense are not Tom Brady's fault. Tom Brady is seeing one thing, and his receivers are seeing others. Now, here's another tweet. Romo wants the Bucs to run more motion. They run the 32nd most motion in the entire NFL. That means they're dead last in motion before the snap. He said it 3 times now. He's probably right and all, but they're unlikely to install an entire new offense right now during a game against the Super Bowl champs. This is written by some idiot, actually. No, of course they're not going to install it in the middle of the game, but he's an analyst who's analyzing the game and telling us what's happening. So no, he's not suggesting that they install it now. What he's saying is there are some errors, there are some problems in this system that need to be corrected, if not today, pretty darn soon, because it's going to be a problem, and it is a problem. He's seeing a problem happen right now. And here's the last tweet that I found, and I thought it was pretty good. Ed Werder comes out and says, Tony Romo with some educational insights as to the problems with Tom Brady in the Bruce Arians offense. Not enough pre-snap motion, no run game or play action, and none of the things that make it easier to play quarterback. And Danny Woodhead, who, if you don't know who Danny Woodhead is about the size of my nephew. He's about 150 pounds. He somehow, with his own willpower and his brain power, turned himself into an NFL player who actually had a pretty good career, chimes back in and says, used to play with Brady, and says, been bothering me all year long. It also helps to have position players who know what man and zone is too. So he is calling these players out as well. And he is saying, these guys are running routes. They're running option routes. And an option route is, you know your route. If you get this coverage, you're going to run this route. If you're going to get this other coverage, you're going to run this other route. Brady is seeing one thing. The receivers are seeing something else. Chances are, in situations like this, Your quarterback is right, and you are probably wrong. So what you have in Tampa Bay right now is you've got a bunch of receivers that don't know how to run routes, which has to make you wonder. Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions last year. And when you watched him play, he would throw interceptions, and you would think to yourself, where in the heck is he throwing the ball? The quarterback, the wide receiver stopped 5 yards short of there. Where is he throwing the ball? Maybe that was a problem last year too. I mean, we're seeing the same problem in the same offense 2 years in a row with two different quarterbacks. But we're never going to call out the system, and we're never going to call out the wide receivers. Instead, we're going to continue to say it's the quarterback's fault. Now, the big difference is that Tom Brady's gotten lucky and hasn't thrown those interceptions. So at least they haven't piled on him the way they piled up on Jameis last year. Now, I'm not saying Jameis Winston didn't throw some bad balls last year. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this guy also threw for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. He just so happened to also throw 30 interceptions. So something's wrong inside that system. And I said that a long time ago, and I'm going to stick with that. Now, since we're talking about quarterbacks, I want to talk real quick about what happened in Denver, the Denver disaster. And when I'm done, I'm going to bring in a special guest. But right now, let's talk about the Denver disaster. If you didn't watch football yesterday, you didn't watch the embarrassment that happened. What happened was the Denver quarterbacks. Denver carries 3 quarterbacks on their roster. All 3 sat in a meeting together a few days ago and didn't wear masks, didn't sit 6 feet apart. Reports are that at some point they actually sat together at a table and ate. Reports are that they were kind of wrestling around with each other, and they were very close. And all 3 quarterbacks came down with COVID. And Denver had to go into a game and play New Orleans with no quarterback. They had no quarterback left. They had one guy left on their practice squad who was actually a wide receiver who had played some quarterback along the way. And he was the only guy left on their practice squad. So they weren't prepared to have a 4th guy somewhere. Like, I don't think a lot of people remember this, but Josh McCown actually still plays for Philadelphia. And a lot of people don't really know that because Josh McCown's actually on their practice squad, and he's actually in Texas right now. They told him, go home. You're 40 years old. Go home, attend all the meetings, make sure you show up, learn what's going on. And what we'll do is if we need you, if we have a huge disaster like this, we'll pull you off the bench and you can fill in a game for us. It was actually a really brilliant move that a lot of people laughed at when it happened. Now, the one thing that I can say is after watching this debacle, and I tried to watch a half of this. It was absolutely positively terrible. It was terrible football. Denver looked awful. But I hope that what the NFL does is they take this tape and they send it to all 32 teams. And they say, this could be you. If you don't follow the protocols, if you don't listen to what we're telling you to do, the guidelines we've put in place, this could and this will be you. We're not afraid to put you out there and embarrass the heck out of you. We're not going to cancel games. We're not going to forfeit games because you guys can't follow the rules. Instead, we'll put you out there without quarterbacks. We'll throw you out there. We'll throw you and your franchise quarterback out there without an offensive line. We'll do all these things for you if you can't follow the rules. So I, for one, applaud the NFL in going forward and doing what they said they were going to do, which was if you can't follow the rules, you will be punished. Good for the NFL. All right. My name is John Tedora. I am the host here on What's on Sports, the What's on Sports podcast. We've got a great website. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We're building a YouTube channel for those of you that have been listening and watching, and we really appreciate it. And as you know, we like to bring in special guests. Some of them are from outside the system. Some of them are from inside the system. And today we got a real special guest coming in here. He's been on the show before. He's actually one of my favorite guests, mainly because he's got that beautiful flowing hair, but also because he's literally the only guest who's ever come on here who's given me any winning advice. His name is Michael Schussler. He's the editor-in-chief over at What's on Sports. He's got a brand new podcast coming up that drops on Thursday, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But first, Michael, hey, thank you very much, man. 2 weeks now, you won me $1,200.
What can I say, John? You follow the price to profit algorithm. You're not going to lose.
It's amazing. It's actually amazing. I think I mentioned it earlier, but if you've never played fantasy football before, they will tell you how much money that they think you may win. Right. So Going into the fourth quarter of the 1:00 games, I'm at like $63,000 is what I'm going to win. I mean, I'm on fire. I mean, I made a bad choice when I leaned on Alvin Kamara. I had Henry in my lineup. I take Henry out because I'm like, Indianapolis has got a better defense than that. I'm going to go with Kamara going against that crap show in Denver. Yep. I think they're just going to run the heck out of the ball, run the clock out, and just crush these guys, which they end up doing, but with a different running back. And if I would have left Henry in and listened to my first instinct, I would have won $60K or more off of $100. Instead, I won $600 off of $100. But Michael, what a great return! Thank you very much for that.
Of course, and some advice to not just you, John, but everyone listening at home. Last minute tinkering to your daily lineups, even season long. That is a killer every time. I mean, just stick with your instincts.
Lesson learned, Michael. Lesson learned for sure for me.
I know you want Kamara in there. I mean, why not? Everything looked good to line up with that. And like you said, the Colts are the number one defense statistically, but yeah. Derrick Henry had a record-setting first half. The reason.
Let me tell you, I want to talk about the game just for a second. Mm-hmm. The holes. Like everyone's like, oh, Derrick Henry, he was really finding the holes. The holes were enormous.
Yeah.
Holes were enormous. And then, this guy gets to the second level. It was a nightmare to watch. It was absolutely nightmarish.
Another, stiff arm that I forget the defender that he stiff armed, but it's another poster that guy's on now. So that's going to be fun for him.
But this time he actually stiff armed a defensive lineman.
Right.
He stiff armed a guy bigger than him this time. And
it wasn't Josh Norman.
Really yeah, it's very nice.
There's not many players bigger than him in the NFL anyway. But the reason that you didn't win $60,000 is because you didn't have Tyreek Hill in your lineup, and
yes.
That's no one's fault. It's hard to guess. But if you listen to me, if you read my articles that come out on whatsonsports.com, every week I'm always talking about, it seems like Travis Kelce, and saying how great of a value he is to get him out there. Same can be said with Tyreek Hill. And it all goes back to that Chiefs offense being unfair, is the best way I can put it. Just completely unfair. And that brings me to, as everyone can see watching at home, the headline on the bottom. Is it too early to declare Patrick Mahomes as the GOAT? I don't think it is.
It's not. You have been bullish on Patrick Mahomes for the last few weeks, and you and I have had this debate.
Yeah.
And it's if you watch the first half of that game, you would definitely be on your side. I will say that first half was truly impressive. They were a machine.
Sure. And this is nothing new. I mean, I've said it before. I've said it 1,000 times. I said it last year. Sports fans have heard it. NFL fans, they've heard the hyperbole. Patrick Mahomes is the greatest player of all time. Not just the greatest quarterback, but the greatest football player of all time because of his IQ. And it's not just the numbers. I mean, we'll go into the numbers in a moment, but it's the eye test. And that's something that I've been saying to you. I mean, he just makes plays that no other quarterback can make. No other quarterback that I've seen in history on tape, watching every game, every weekend, like I try to do. I love Lamar Jackson. Brett Favre can't. Brett Favre can't do what Patrick, excuse me. And like I said, I love Lamar Jackson. He's probably my favorite player in the NFL. I have 3 Lamar Jackson jerseys, and hold on. I'm just saying, I love Lamar Jackson, but Patrick Mahomes makes Lamar Jackson look, like a high schooler out there, just because of the plays that Patrick Mahomes can make, throwing off of one foot, backpedaling 15 yards, and still throwing 35 yards, down the field. Even when you think he's about to get sacked or he's being rushed by blitzing linebackers, cornerbacks, defensive linemen, he can either slip out, and this is every time. He slips out and finds Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill 20 yards down the field for a first down, or he picks up, 7, 10, 15 yards with his legs, slips out of bounds or gets a slide right at the last second. He very rarely ever takes a hit. And that just goes to, how smart he is as a player, his pocket presence, his awareness. Like I said, it's unfair. It's almost unfair when you give a guy like that those kind of weapons. Now,
he and the guy in Arizona are my 2 favorite quarterbacks to watch.
Sure.
Simply because of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it's so unorthodox, and the pocket presence is like, how do you guys know that these guys are next to you and you're moving around like that? It's very impressive.
Of course, yeah, but it is. It's extremely impressive. Now, Kyler Murray, I'm not going to say he's one dimensional. He's certainly not, but he doesn't quite make those head scratching plays like Patrick Mahomes does, where it's like, how the hell did he get that ball off, and how was it such a perfect throw? And there's no scheming, there's no game plan for opposing coaches to combat that. The only thing they can hope for is a mistake, which is extremely rare, by the way, as Patrick Mahomes has thrown just 2 interceptions this year to go along with 30 touchdown passes when he's tied for second in the league behind Aaron Rodgers, who has 33. If you want some stats, he's leading the league in passing yards, 3,497. He's leading in touchdown to interception ratio, which I just mentioned, at 30-2. And last week we were talking about the career passer ratings, and it was Rodgers, and Watson, and then I think Drew Brees. And you were saying, giving me some shit, saying, well, where's your boy Patrick Mahomes? Why isn't he on that list? If he's so great, well, where is he on the all-time passer rating list? Well,
fair questions.
Well, here's your answer. The reason Mahomes wasn't on the list last week is because he had not met the minimum required number of passing attempts, which is 1,500, to make that list. So now he has 1,533 passing attempts. So he has now come into that conversation. He's allowed to be listed. He does now qualify.
Okay.
So it was Rodgers when we last talked about it last week at the top spot with the passer rating of 103.1. And then on Thanksgiving, Deshaun Watson, who was number 2, passed Rodgers and came in at 103.6, a record that he held for just 3 whole days before Patrick Mahomes said, I'll take that. Thank you very much. And he finished Sunday with a career passer rating of 110.7. So 7 points higher than Mahomes. I'm sorry, than Rodgers and Watson. Okay. Wow. So I mean, I really don't know what else. He holds the top spot for career passing yards per game at 307.4. No other quarterback has surpassed 300 per game. Drew Brees is second with 280 in his career on average. He's second in career. Yeah, he's second in career yards per pass attempt at 8.5. So 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Otto Graham technically holds the top spot at 9 yards per pass attempt. But in Otto Graham's 10-year career, he only attempted 2,600 some passing attempts. Okay. And that's a number that Patrick Mahomes will surpass in a year or two, because he's already at 1,500 in his 3rd year. It's just it's just a different
game then too. I mean, like you're talking about the generational difference. They would it was all deep throwing back then. Throw the bar 20 yards, run the bar 5 or 10. And right. in today's offense, especially, people forget Mahomes runs a West Coast offense, which is really predicated on these short passes. So for him to have that statistic is actually very impressive.
Oh yeah, well, if you think that's impressive, listen to this. Okay, he's the highest active player in yards per pass completion at 12.7. He's first in net air yards per pass attempt. Peyton Manning is second. He's ranked 4th in pass completion percentage at 66.7%, which is just 1 percentage point away from Drew Brees, who's at the top spot with 67.8%. And of course, Brees is actually known for his short dunk passes, to his running backs, to Michael Thomas for 10 yards here and there. Sure. Patrick Mahomes is known for throwing bombs. So, put that into perspective, that he's still able to complete 66.7%. Impressive. I mean, that's an understatement. He's ranked 1st in career interception percentage at just 1.3%. He's the highest active player in touchdown pass percentage at 7%. And he's 4th all time already. 1st on active. I could go on and on. I'm just saying, I don't know what else to say. I'm surprised that you're able to sit there and tell me that he is not head and shoulders above not only just every other quarterback in the league right now, but every other quarterback that we've ever seen. He's head and shoulders.
I got to tell you though, I watched the Sunday night football game, and one of the best statistics I saw, I don't know if you watched the game or not, they made a graphic out of it. Fastest quarterbacks to wait, I have it here on my phone. I want to make sure I say it right. I want to make sure I say it right, because I actually saved it for you. I was going to send it over to you.
Oh,
fewest passes to 50,000 yards. The fewest passes to hit 50,000 yards. Number 2, all time, Aaron Rodgers. 6,436 passes to hit 50,000 yards. Number 2. Can you guess who number 1 is?
This will be the fastest player to hit 5,000 or is it 50,000?
50,000 yards with the fewest attempts.
Fewest
That's nothing to do
attempts.
with years.
Right.
Fewest attempts.
Is it an active player?
It's an active player. An active player. Number 2 was
Aaron Rodgers.
And number two was Aaron Rodgers. And again, just so the people at home were listening, fewest passes to hit 50,000 yards. Number 2 all time is Aaron Rodgers. Number 1 is, I'll give you 10 seconds to answer.
Give me Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers is an excellent guess. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Phillip Rivers is an excellent guess. It is the wrong guess, though. But you hit the right draft class.
It's got to be Drew Brees then.
Drew Brees was not in that draft class. That draft class was Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, wow.
Ben Roethlisberger.
I should have known. I actually should have known.
You know what? Every once in a while, I got to throw one in there. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's right. Michael's a Ravens fan. He's coming on a show later. I gotta throw that one out there at him.
That's impressive. That's impressive. I mean, Big Ben, future Hall of Famer, first ballot, no doubt. But he's no Patrick Mahomes. And, before we get off the topic of Patrick Mahomes, because like I said,
sure.
I could literally go on and on for the rest of your show. I'm not going to do that, but I will say,
Are you going to?
I'm about to for at least a little bit more. Just that Patrick Mahomes, not only is he amazing in his own right, he's also able to produce the top 2 pass catchers in the NFL today, as Tyreek Hill leads the league in receiving yards at 1,021. Travis Kelce is second in the NFL at 978 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill leads the league with 13 receiving touchdowns. Travis Kelce paces all tight ends with 7 receiving touchdowns. I mean, like I said, there's really not that much more to say. Patrick Mahomes, at his age, is on pace to be the greatest quarterback, the greatest football player that there's ever been.
So I just really quick, and because I know you got to go. I know you got a busy day and you're getting ready for this podcast on Thursday, which we are going to talk about before we wrap up. But just really quick. So it's 100% Patrick Mahomes. It's not the talent around him.
No, of course not. I mean, that's not. No, I'm saying that is. It's not. Of course, it's not just Patrick Mahomes. He has incredible talent around him, but so does almost every NFL roster. Okay, sure. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Those are a great 1-2 punch. But let's look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Deontay Johnson, Juju, Chase Claypool. Okay, let's look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk. I mean,
okay, so hang on. So we just talked about all those wide receivers. In your opinion, are any of them better than Tyreek Hill?
I would say we didn't talk about Devontae Adams is better than Tyreek Hill. Keenan Allen's probably better than Tyreek Hill. Michael Thomas. I mean, these guys are, Tyreek Hill obviously is a top probably 5 wide receiver, but Tyreek Hill would not be what he is without Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Tyreek Hill is like a rich man's Marquise Brown, or you could say Marquise Brown is a poor man's Tyreek Hill.
But Patrick Mahomes would be Patrick Mahomes without Tyreek Hill.
100%. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Interesting perspective. Before you wrap up, talk about your podcast. Now you got a brand new podcast coming out Thursday morning.
Yep.
It'll be live on our Facebook and our YouTube, and it'll also be recorded so people can download it. What's the name of the podcast?
It's called Fantasy Fallout, and we'll be covering, my weekly rankings for Week 13 coming up as season-long fantasy playoffs are about to start. This is in standard leagues or any respectable league. This is Week 13 is the final regular season of fantasy as we move into the first round of the playoffs starting Week 14. So plenty to cover there, plenty to go over. I'll be taking start and sit questions. Like I said, I'll be going over my rankings, the best positional matchups as far as wide receiver and cornerbacks go. Just a lot to cover. And there's plenty of great information, like I said, on our website, whatsonsports.com. You can check out all of our excellent articles there that go beyond just the fantasy aspect. But for anyone who's trying to make some money, like you did this weekend, John, wants to go over some daily fantasy sports, DFS picks, that's what I do. It's a profit or price to profit algorithm worked out for you 2 weeks in a row. I don't know how you can
Awesome.
stop. You said you're addicted now. That's what happens. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I hate to use the word addicted, but I mean, I'm pretty gosh darn close after the first 2 weeks, and I'm not addicted to the. It's weird. I'm not addicted to the money. I'm just addicted to the excitement of so much going on. Like, oh, geez, what's going on in this game? What's going on in this game? What's going on in this game? I had so much to root for that wasn't even just my team, which is what I normally root for, So
I mean, that's the beauty of fantasy sports, especially in football, in the NFL. That's why the NFL really has a leg up on sports like the NBA and Major League Baseball and even hockey. Not just the sport itself, being so physical and violent and so attractive. I mean, it's a beautiful sport. But just the fact that everyday people like you and me can sit at home and follow along on our phones. I mean, it's that easy to have teams that we build, and we feel like, we have some sort of influence or some sort of insider knowledge. Like, oh, this guy is so good, he's gonna put up points. I mean, it's just a lot of fun, and it's really difficult for other sports to capture that. I think the NBA is the next best at that, and you talked about the future of fantasy sports as we move away from football season. Of course, my podcast, the Fantasy Fallout, will cover daily NBA fantasy rankings, and just as far as season long goes with that. Of course, baseball, we'll cover it all, but it's really difficult for those sports to compete with the NFL, obviously.
Awesome. His name is Michael Schussler. He's the editor-in-chief over at What's on Sports. By the way, guys, all the articles he was telling you about, they're all free. You can go over and read them. You can check them out. Great information. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. I cannot wait to hear your show on Thursday morning. And I can't wait to actually, get invited on so I can take up some of your valuable airtime talking about things.
I'll have to check the schedule, see if I can fit you in there. But thanks for having me, John.
Boy, thank God I have this button. Just get rid of them. All right, guys, we got a great show going on today. Again, just to remind everybody, if you don't know what's going on, our show is sponsored by our friends over at sportstradingsystems.com, where they've created a revolutionary method that allows you to trade sports just like other people trade stocks. Now, they're using back-tested historical data, and if you don't know what that is, that's information that you can go back and check. They can go back 5, 10, 15, even 20 years to find information, and it's not the kind of information that other people have. This is information that's strictly based upon different type of line movements and things like that. It's so intricate and so amazing over there. The guys at Sports Trading Systems Lab have developed a trading system with models that show returns up to 200% on your money with low downtime risk on these models. You can learn about these amazing systems, and they can teach you anybody how to do it. If you know how to use a computer, they can teach anyone how to develop their own systems and make this stuff work by using stop losses, system development, and a proprietary risk management system. They can put you in the driver's seat and will absolutely positively make the people over at FanDuel and the other sports books in Las Vegas just quake when they see you guys. It's some revolutionary, absolutely amazing stuff. Now, we do have one more guest coming up for us later on. We've got Mr. Lance Fernandez going to come out. He's going to talk about the death of the Patriot way. But before we do that, I just want to quickly cover what's happening tonight and maybe what's going to happen tomorrow too. Now, there's a game tonight that's going to happen for sure, which is Seattle, and they're going to go into Philadelphia. They're 5.5 point favorites right now going against Philadelphia. Now, the word on the street and the word on Twitter is that Jalen Hurts is going to get an opportunity to play tonight. Now, I don't know what that means. I've seen that said a few places. Apparently, the actual Philadelphia coaches have come out and said that Jalen Hurts will get a chance to play. Is he going to split time with Carson Wentz? Is he going to take time from Carson Wentz? Is he going to be more of a trick play kind of guy? I don't know what they're saying, but Carson Wentz has been absolutely awful. And you know what? If you're ever going to get your team back, as good as Seattle has been on offense, they have been equally as terrible on defense. And if you're ever going to get your team back and get them playing in the right direction, I think that today's one of those days. I think today's one of those days when you're going to be able to get a quarterback in there, somebody, and you're going to be able to score some points, and you might be able to win, because I don't know if you can stop that Seattle offense when they're really, really moving. And now that they're actually taking some time and dedicating themselves to actually running the ball, they become a very scary offense. So if I'm a betting man, which of course everybody knows that I am, I'm a betting man without looking at any algorithms, without looking at anything. I'm saying that Seattle should have a cakewalk tonight. That Philadelphia's been really not playing their best football. But if I had to take the other side, I would say that Philadelphia knows that they're in a position right now. Now, if they win, they remain in first place. But Philadelphia is basically in the playoffs for the rest of the season. And if they don't figure this out, if they don't figure out what's going on, they're going to be out really quick. As Washington, Dallas didn't look great on Thursday, but Washington's actually turning it around. I've been watching them the last few weeks, and I've been calling them as the team that's going to end up stopping Pittsburgh's undefeated season. They're going to be the ones who actually stop it, I think. If anyone has a chance, it's going to be Washington, because Washington's one of those sleeper, sneaky teams. They can defend the pass. They're okay against the run. They're starting to put something together on offense. They got a couple weapons that are a little bit scary on offense. Their offensive line's starting to gel together. So they're that team that can happen. But if you're looking at tonight's going to be Seattle versus Philadelphia. I'm looking for it to be the high-scoring game. The over-under is going to be something I think we're not even going to look at. We're going to blow right past it like we did last night in that Chicago game. That Chicago Green Bay game was like a 67-point final, which is pretty awesome. But I think we're looking at the same thing tonight. I think we're looking at something huge. And then tomorrow, if that game is even played, the last I checked, I believe the Ravens have 18 players on the COVID list. So they'll barely be able to field the team in Pittsburgh. They're already, this is a team that's already demoralized. Lamar Jackson's got the heart of a cantaloupe, really. You cut open the cantaloupe and it's kind of like hollow inside. There's you pull out the seeds, it almost looks like tears. That's what's happening. That's really what's happening in Baltimore. And he won't even be playing. Now, Michael Schussler is somewhere, by the way, right now, probably listening to what's happening here. And he's just absolutely can't wait to crush me on his podcast on Thursday. But I encourage you guys to listen to that, by the way, guys. Fantasy Fallout's going to be a great show. If he talks about me, please let me know. Okay, just send it over to me. Now, I got one more guest coming up. Lance Fernandez is a new writer for What's on Sports. He actually used to work for Fox Sports, but now he's come over and started to work for What's on Sports. He's been putting together some great content, and he's been talking about something really interesting, especially in this morning's meeting, a virtual meeting, which I did attend. He was talking about the death of the Patriot way. And I want to bring Lance in. Lance, are you with me?
Hello, John. How are you doing?
Good, Lance. How are you? Good to see you, buddy.
Doing awesome. Doing great. Yeah, hope you had a great holiday.
Oh, yeah. I had a wonderful holiday. I hope you had the same. So listen, I know you've been talking about this death of the Patriot way, and I think it goes deeper than just Bill Belichick, right? Why don't you tell us what you've been looking at today?
Well, after 2 decades or so, the New England Patriots dynasty that loomed like a dark cloud over the AFC East, and for the AFC for that matter, has finally been dissipated when Tom Brady left for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So when we talk about the Patriot way, and a lot of teams are trying to get a taste of that Patriot way by hiring Patriot associates, former associates of Bill Belichick who coach under him. They haven't had much success as the partnership between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, which leads me to conclude or say that essentially the Patriot way that we've had for the last 20 years or so was basically Brady plus Belichick. You couldn't get just one person and leave the other behind. It's a partnership between the two of them that Belichick has a system that Brady can execute well, and Brady needed a system just like how Bill Belichick devised it. So now that they're on separate ways and we see how both of them are struggling, then we therefore can conclude that the Patriot way is a distant memory from the NFL.
So what we're looking at now is, and I believe the reason this conversation is coming up is not only because of the struggles that you're seeing in New England, and not only because of the struggles you're seeing with Tom Brady, but because of what just happened in Detroit, where Detroit is another one of those casualties that you're talking about. And I don't know how many Bill Belichick's disciples have gone out and gotten jobs thinking that they're going to recreate that New England type of vibe wherever they go, and just failing in the most miserable way. It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. So the latest in the long line of former Patriot deputies that are now in the laundry list, so to speak, in the NFL are Matt Patricia and, of course, Bob Quinn, who were former defensive coordinator and director of player personnel for the Patriots.
Mm.
They came in to the Lions thinking that the Patriot way was the solution, when in fact, the Lions had something going well already with Jim Caldwell. They had consecutive 9 and 7 seasons
Mm.
before
Good point.
Patricia and Bob Quinn came in. So they were onto something already. And it just so happened that Bob Quinn did not trust Caldwell so much that he had to get one of his former buddies from the Patriots, Patricia, who didn't do well, as we now know. He was often late at meetings. Sometimes he doesn't have clear direction when he talks to the press, and he has this ego, as former Lions players would always say on social media and all of the other platforms, that he thinks himself as someone higher than his
Mm.
players. He doesn't really connect with them. He doesn't really know or really reach out to them. And I guess that's where the divide came from, and eventually the downfall of his tenure.
Yeah, I had heard that he had held his Super Bowls over them, saying, I'm a Super Bowl champion, coach. How could you not listen to me? Blah blah blah. And I have to wonder. I don't think that plays very well in the locker room when a bunch of guys are trying to be your equal or on the same footing as you, and you're looking down at them. I can't imagine it's a great work environment for these guys.
Yeah, that's not a great pitch to start with, John, because we know that these professionals have already proven their worth somehow. It's just that they need that final push to get them over the hump. And starting with a statement like, I'm a Super Bowl champion, when in fact he is a defensive coordinator
Mm.
and somebody is above him who has been lording over the franchise for like 2 decades, is not
Yeah.
even an accurate statement to begin with. He is not the first defensive coordinator during the tenure of Bill Belichick. There have
Oh,
been a
good
lot.
point. Good
And
point.
despite the roller coaster or the revolving door of defensive coordinators, Belichick always wins because he had Brady, and there's the consistency throughout the franchise.
Yeah, it seems to be the only coach that I can think of that's actually left and had any type of success at all would be maybe I guess Brian Flores in Miami at this point. I mean, and the jury's still out there, but he does seem to be at least making some headway in has been historically a terrible Miami franchise. But it seems to be turning it around a little bit there. But other than that, I can't think of an example of somebody that actually coached under Bill Belichick and has left and had really any type of success at all. It's been really,
Yeah,
really bad. It's really strange, right?
it's like a spell that when they leave, they get this bad taste or forget everything they know about coaching when once they leave Foxborough, and then they become like pedestrian coaches once they
Mm.
leave the vicinity of New England. But yeah, you're right about Flores. He's onto something, and he has a talented quarterback in Tua, and he's trying to go through the motions and not really forcing him to start immediately in his rookie season. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a nice approach for him to take him in one step at a time and not to force him in the NFL pace of the game. But actually, there are some coaches that have modest success when it comes about leaving the Patriots.
Okay.
One, of course, Eric Mangini. He had a good record with the Jets, but
Mancini
he
was not
flamed
bad.
out. Yeah, he's not bad, but it was the honeymoon was short lived, to say the
Yeah.
least. So he faltered, and then the Brown stint was even more forgetful. And let's not forget about Bill O'Brien. He won 4 AFC South titles, once
Okay.
with the Texans. But
Good point.
we all know that in the NFL, you're always judged by your last move. And we
Yes.
all know what his last move is that questionable, and that's all caps questionable,
Yeah.
trade to by DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals. So he is also considered one of those Belichick associates that are not doing well when it comes to handling their own franchise.
Yeah, I first of all, you're being very nice when you say questionable. I think at the very best, that's a questionable move. I think it was a terrible move. I think most people would agree with that. But the other thing is you bringing up Bill O'Brien's interesting because O'Brien had the same type of ego, the same type of I'm the man, I'm a Super Bowl champion type of ego as a coach, and I don't know that goes very well. I don't know that Belichick quite has the ego as much as he's just a little bit odd. like players tell odd stories about Belichick all the time and how he's just maybe a little like strange in his social behavior, but not necessarily the same egotistical way. It seems like, especially when you see Belichick on film, you'll see him actually talk to players like a coach, like a coach who's not afraid to get down and get dirty. He's wearing an old sweatshirt and he's showing him where to put hand placement and things like that. And he's not afraid to get in and get a little dirty. I think whether the players like Belichick or not, I think at the end of the day, they respect him. I think it was definitely a problem with O'Brien. They definitely did not respect him. I think a lot of these coaches are having trouble getting that across too. Lance, great work. You're going to be writing an entire article on this, a story profile for the website. Is that correct?
Yes, I will.
And that'll be up a little later on today?
Yes, it will come out anytime soon, within the next hour or so.
Awesome. Lance, great work. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for having me.
Wow, what a great show we've had today, man. Just a great bunch of great guests and a lot of great guys coming on here. I'm super happy this happened. I was a little disappointed in Michael, but mainly because of his hair. For those of you listening at home on the podcast, you couldn't see it. The ends were all fried. I mean, the guy needs a little bit of conditioner, but Christmas is coming up. We're going to set up a P.O. box so everyone can send it over to him so he can have some brand new hair treatment, and we can take care of that and make sure the kid's taken care of, okay? Now, listen, for those of you that have watched us on a social media platform, we just really appreciate it. If you'd like to listen to the whole show, whether you're working out, driving along in the car, things like that, you can download us on any of your favorite podcast places. Just look for What's on Sports, the podcast. That's us. My name is John Todora. I'll be doing the show Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays until you guys just start begging for more. And I know that's coming. It's going to be like begging for more. We'll also be going live 5 days a week on YouTube and on Facebook, so you guys can check us out there. I appreciate you guys all listening. Don't forget to go check out our website, whatsonsports.com.